No one's perfect, so don't be afraid to mess it up. And fear is useless. What is needed is trust, and you have to always trust that you're where you're supposed to be when you're there, and just keep going forward.
Welcome back to the Mark Ferris Experience. I'm your host, Mark Ferris. Today we're interviewing Dawn Mucci. She is a phenomenal entrepreneur. She started a company that you would not think of, but she's been incredibly successful. She's the founder and spokesperson for LiceSquad.com. And really cool how she got this company started. We're going to be jumping into that. She has 30 locations, 14 franchisees that work with her, and she has a staff of 7 and just a award-winning franchisor. So she was awarded the top 100 of 2025 and the gold award of excellence in franchising from the Canadian Franchise Association. She serves on many different boards and is frequently featured on national media. So CTV, CBC, Global News, Discovery Channel, you name it, she is on it. And I'm just really excited for the conversation. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
So Dawn, let's go back to the origin story of what got you into becoming an entrepreneur. And we're really excited to hear LiceSquad.com. Where was the origin story originated from, and what gave you this idea to kick off such a successful business?
Well, I was always an entrepreneurial child. I did the lemonade stands. Everything I could think of to earn a dollar growing up. I didn't come from privilege, so I learned how to create my own. And growing up, I was a very social child. I had long, thick, lovely hair. And of course, when the nurses used to come and check for lice, I was that kid who got sent home because, I was playing with all the other kids, making head-to-head contact. And so it was a very stigmatizing and traumatizing experience. Every single time it happened, I felt ostracized and horrible about it. And then, as a young mom, I got lice from my son who brought home from daycare. And I went right back to that negative place. I felt the same shame and stigma. And I went looking for help, and there was nothing available. So that's when the entrepreneurial spirit in me kicked in to solve the problem I was going through, and in turn ended up starting a business and helping other moms going through the same experience solve their head lice issues as well.
Dawn, isn't it so interesting how businesses are birthed from personally going through challenges that you just didn't see a solution for?
Mhm.
Uh, this is such a good one because emotionally, I'm going there as a child, but even as an adult, where
Mhm.
it's like ostracized. It's such an easy thing to run into,
Mhm.
um, but there's such a negative, we'll say, connotation, and that emotionally that would impact people as well. So I think
Mhm.
your story is probably the perfect origin story there for, uh, for clients coming to see you, that they can resonate and connect with you at a different level that you personally went through it. So Don, what a really strong start that you had. Have you had any previous experience in business, or what was it that you did prior to launching this career?
I had a lot of side hustles growing up. Like I said, I was very entrepreneurial. I actually dropped out of high school just because I was having some issues dealing with anxiety. And I did go back and later graduated with honors at my high school. But I never really had any formal education as far as business goes. I didn't wasn't privileged to go on to university or college. Quite frankly, I didn't have the time. I was making a living. I was a single mom. I had a young son to support. So I basically figured it out. I knew I had something of value to offer to others and to communities that were looking for the solution that I was providing. So I ran with that. And I figured it out. I have to say, when you look at someone who's successful, it doesn't matter what field they're in, entrepreneur, actor, singer. People always go, oh my God, the overnight success. Like, how did you do that? And, you must have had this and that and the other. A lot of people just have 10,000 hours plus or 20 years behind them of hard work that gets them to that spot, right? People don't see that side of it. And that's exactly what I had to do, was just figure it out as it went, work hard and never give up.
Yeah, it's business is one of those you can learn all the theoretical side of it, but the reality there is when you get in the real world, that's where you start to size up and get context of what it is you're learning.
Hmm.
Um, I think a perfect university business program would be you go into the classroom for 2 days and then go into the real world for 2 or 3 days and implement right away because
Hmm.
theoretical you go 4 years, and I know some programs have co-ops. In the summer they have placements and whatnot, which I think is really smart. But I think one of the best things is to do exactly what you did as well. I mean, I had a 2 year tool and die making, which is basically like engineering or whatever. But I never applied any of that after the fact, and all the business was basically self learned through learning, applying, and basically doing it again and again. That 10,000 hours that you had referred to.
Yeah.
It seems like it's almost been like a blessing for you that you're able to jump right into the business field uh, on that end and learn as you go. Uh, what would you say would be some of the things that helped you when you first started to get through that early struggle phase?
Well, I was wearing all the hats in the business, no pun intended. And head lice, you don't want to share hats. But I think the best thing I did was join an association in the industry that I was in. So I joined the Canadian Franchise Association. I didn't know how I was going to scale my business, but it kind of fell in my lap when a lady from Sudbury called me and said, I want to buy a franchise. And I just said yes. And I had no idea what franchising was about, how to organize that. And I was just grateful someone wanted to give me money to pick headlights. I thought, wow, this is ridiculous. So I joined the association and I applied to sit on their board of directors. And I did that for 7 years. And that's kind of where I got my university education, was sitting with the founders and CEOs of, McDonald's and Boston Pizza and all these other big brands, big, small, and medium. It's not all service restaurants, it's mostly service businesses in the franchise world. So I learned a lot there. And I made a lot of mistakes, classic mistakes, as most of us do in our learning journeys to become successful. And, as any entrepreneur will tell you, your success is a series of mistakes and failures piled up to make the cornerstones of your, foundation. So, being able to surround yourself with your peers in that space is really important. And then as soon as I had the money, I put a hat on someone else. One thing you should never do is do things you're not good at, like play to your strengths. And so I started putting hats on other people where I was weak. And that's when the business started to actually scale and get better. And I started to relieve myself of that burden and pressure of being a solopreneur and a new business owner.
Yeah, that's phenomenal that you had that insight to get around other successful people that were, ahead of you, and you got to learn from them. I think a lot of us, it took a while to figure that figure that out. So that you did that early was great.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the entrepreneur that, they're busy, but they're fearful of hiring that person to be able to take some of those, we'll say that the hat of the hat reference actually is you had mentioned, no pun intended. It actually, you gotta watch that. It actually works really well with what you're doing. Don't share your hats. But the point there is, what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs that are fearful on hiring somebody, because it's expensive and it seems like a big cost, and you got to be you're responsible for making sure there's a paycheck for that next person. What advice would you have for that entrepreneur that is worried to take that step?
It's the best money you'll ever spend, and if you don't do it, you're never going to be successful. Solopreneurship is kind of a death sentence in any field. It's like, you know, I, I attribute all of my success to the people I surround myself with, and the more people, the better. And if I had, like, if I could, I would have like a double the size of a team, and I hope to one day. But it's the best money I could ever spend. And it's the reason that the business succeeds, because I only know what I know and I only know so much. And what I do know is we have something that other people want and we have potential to grow it bigger than it is. And the only way we're going to do that is if we put more talented people on the bus, and I get people that are smarter than me around me, and someone driving that bus that knows, the vision of where we're going to end up and how we're going to get there. So yeah, spend your money. Don't try and do it alone. Just that's the worst thing you could do is go it alone.
Yeah, that's great encouragement. And the solopreneurship, it's you had mentioned that like you can only do so much. And I remember my first year, it was Joanna and myself. She was doing all the marketing, my wife, and the staging, and I was like maxing out, and I was like hitting the ceiling, working 70 hours a week. And I thought to myself, wow, like I can't do any more. There's not enough hours in the day. You can be productive to a certain level, like super crazy productive on your own, but you need that step, and it can be scary. So that encouragement is good. When do you think is the right time? Like, do you think there's once you're maxing out on hours, when you have a certain amount of income, when you first start, does it make sense right away to just hire somebody and trust everything's going to work out? Is there a certain threshold where you're like, at this point, like that's the right move to hire somebody?
That's it. I would think that's just based on the individual, bandwidth and what they're wanting to do with their business. I say do it as quickly as possible. Take a pay cut to afford somebody smarter than you in your business. Take a pay cut for whatever amount of time it takes to get somebody in there that can further you along than you can by yourself. The other big piece of advice I do have for entrepreneurs is you have to really take care of your health, and you can't be healthy if you're working 70-hour work weeks and you're stressing yourself out doing all these other things that you're really not good at and struggling with those and then becoming overwhelmed. And once you get overwhelmed and the stress and the cortisol kicks in, everything else kind of is irrelevant, right? So focusing on self-care, and self-care means you need support. Self-care is surrounding yourself with other
Yeah.
people who can lift you up when you're falling down, or stop you from falling down and say, hey, well, you need to take a break. I got this. Let me get in there and help you. Because a lot of us entrepreneurs, we're so driven, and our goal is to make it work, and we'll do that at any cost, and sometimes to our own detriment to our health. We'll work ourselves to death, and that's not a good thing. So I don't know when that is for anyone else, but for me, I have a very low overwhelm threshold. I can get overwhelmed easily, so the more people I have around me doing things to help me stay in that optimum productive zone, then that's what I need.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's almost like the entrepreneurs, they romanticize around, I work 80 hours a week, and it's almost like this badge of
Painful.
honor.
Oh,
But
don't do it.
you see a guy like Jeff Bezos, for example, or Sarah Blakely or whatever, these billionaires, and they're just calm. They're super cool and collected. And I remember Jeff Bezos was saying, as a senior leader, his biggest thing is that he needs to make a few good decisions a day,
That's
and
right.
even sometimes less than that, and that's it. But if you're constantly in the day to day and you don't zoom up, it can be very negative on the business, that you're so in the weeds that you don't see that there's an iceberg coming. And so I think your advice is really good, really solid. And I think that there's this idea that if I just work more hours, I'm going to make more money. But what's interesting is that if you're doing we'll say an administrative role, that you can hire somebody at say $15 or say under $20 an hour, and you're doing it, you're basically paying yourself $15 to $20. Whereas if you can delegate those lower producing activities to somebody and pay them the that amount, you can then have free up your time, buy back your time, as Dan Martell talks about in his book, Buy Back
Mm-hmm.
Your Time. and
Yep.
and you can redeploy that into higher producing activities that's maybe 100, 200, $300. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I think the big misconception is, if I hire somebody, then I'm going to have these free hours and I'm just going to go for a walk during those hours. Now, I think that's good if you're investing into your health, but if you can redeploy it into generating more business, that hire is going to pay for itself, 10x. Um,
Absolutely.
but you got to put your time into that next level, high producing activity
Yeah.
range. So uh, really, it's really good insight, and it's hard for most entrepreneurs to take that step.
Mm. Yes, absolutely.
What helped me was we said, you know what, we're going to hire somebody for 3 months, and if we see value, we're going to keep it. And if
Hmm.
not, then it's a 3 month investment. That helped kind of wrap your head around making that choice. But what was interesting, and we told her you're only going to be working. It's a 30-hour work week, but when she came on, it was like 40 hours plus, and we never looked back on that. It was
Yeah.
it's a big deal. And when you go through it yourself, you see it, but until you go through it, it's almost like you got to just trust Dawn on this. Okay. Dawn is speaking from experience and truth. And that's been my experience, making that hire. So that's good counsel.
So,
Dawn, what would you say when you first started was your biggest challenge that you had to overcome getting into business?
financing, like anything, financing anything is always a delicate dance. Uh, Financing, and I guess the red tape involved in being an entrepreneur in Canada. There's a lot of regulatory red tape and things that you need to navigate that are very complex. This is when you want to hire somebody to help you navigate those things. Uh, that's been, from my experience, the two biggest challenges as an entrepreneur here in Canada that I faced.
Yeah, no, it's unless you make a sale, you're not getting income. So there's a big difference than when you're working with somebody and you're getting that check every week. Um, but that's where for me it was like the exciting part was if I work harder and then my income is going to be directly correlated to the activities that you put in. So you're betting on yourself going into that. So um, you better really believe in yourself that yes, I'm going to be able to put food on the table. But that financial side of it was the same for me. Like we max out our credit cards. That financial point was
Yeah,
stressful.
yeah, yeah,
But what
for
it
sure.
but what it did, and I tell me, I'm curious to know on your end, did that help motivate you and I give fuel to your fire to be able to get out there and go that extra mile at the beginning to be able to make sure that you could make it happen?
Well, I mean, I was going to do whatever it took, no matter what. I was fortunate that, I mean, I started this with a $500 savings account as a single mom who was on assistance at the time. But thanks be to God, who birthed the idea and gave me the opportunity to help people with this issue, that I was soon making enough money to sustain myself and pay my bills and eventually become self sufficient. And it was a blessing because then I was so busy that I couldn't keep up and I had to start training other women to help me. It's not a career that draws a lot of men. So, I don't say that because I'm biased, but it's,
Yeah.
I was training other people to help me, and the business just took off and it was amazing. I was really I couldn't believe it, quite frankly. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, of all the things to be called to do in the world, is to help people with this issue that you struggled with, and then now all of a sudden you're training and paying other people to help you, and some woman calls you from Sudbury and wants to buy a franchise. And I was overwhelmed by the whole thing. I thought, this is awesome. I'll just keep going with this because it's working. So that's what I did. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I get distracted all the time. I have ideas after ideas. I'm always coming up with things, and it's a little distracting. And one thing I have to say is, if you've got something good, focus on that. Don't let the shiny things and the greener grass give you any, take away any of your focus, because I think if you've got something and it's working, you got to stick to it. And maybe if you want to add or modify, that's fine. But yeah, stick with what's working for you.
Yeah, that's great. And I take it you're more of a visionary, so you got like the
Yeah,
ideas. I
yeah,
struggle with that same challenge. Just I'm like, hey Joanna, we could do this and we could do this. She's like, Mark. So I'm writing a book right now. I'm like, I could write a book on this. She's like, seriously, Mark, you got to finish your book you're writing. I'm like, yeah, but she's like, Mark, slow down, just
yeah.
focus. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I
I
know, but
think we have the same disease.
Yeah.
It's called being an entrepreneur, and we just always coming up with ideas and ways. Like I do fundraisers, and I don't realize once I've already started it how much work's involved in the fundraiser, and then I'm not at work for like 3 months because I'm doing a fundraiser, and it's like
Yeah.
it's very hard to stay on track and focus. But
Yeah.
you know,
Don, I don't know if you're like me, and when we're going out to a restaurant or something, Joanna and I, and we see like an opportunity for customer service, we're like, hey, like, wow, these guys are like amazing. Do you see how they did that extra little wow there? Or like, wow,
yeah,
this guy got a really bad review on the service. Like he's totally not engaged. He's not full out, and or
yeah.
the way that they take the input, we're like, it's
Are
like
you
I said.
nitpicking? Are you nitpicking, Mark?
I, the way it was funny because it was interesting conversation, and I'm glad you brought that up because after we were going through that, I'm like, geez, are we like complaining to, or like, was it a complaint? Because I'm totally, I hate the idea of complaining and whining. That's something I teach the boys a lot. It's like, listen, 100-0, everything in your life is, take 100% your responsibility, no excuses. But when we started dissecting it, if it was complaining or if it was like looking for opportunities to improve, which we actually looped it back to like, we're coming from a place of how this business can improve, which we like to be able to see that. And so we went full circle kind of on that, and we realized, okay, this is a good thing, and this is not a negative thing. This is like an improvement thing. But yes, I guess you could maybe say nitpick, but it was more coming from a place of like, how can we make it better?
Yeah, I
Right.
appreciate that for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I'm not sure if you see that as well when you're out on a day-to-day basis. Like you just get an idea on how they could do something, and then you start going down. It's like two ideas come together. Like, oh, you could do that, and then you're looking it up. Did anybody do that yet? Um, but it's is that something you find on a day-to-day? You you struggle with that?
I struggle with stopping myself from starting things. Like I've got 3 books on the go, and I'm probably never going to finish one of them because they're always like I'm really I'm always inspired. I'm always curious. I'm very just driven to create. I think that's an entrepreneurial trait. Is we're very creative, and our art is business, or our art is networking or connection, and I just find myself always looking for problems to solve, or things to fix, or just things to create. And that's why I like being in the business I'm in, because I can create and modify within my business products and services and things of that nature. I created a coloring book called The Facts of Life. So I did write a book. Finally, it was finished. But like I said, I have a problem starting things and being focused. So this is my lesson to myself and to any other entrepreneur out there. Is they always say, three things on your to-do list every day. Focus on 1 2 things at max. Don't make multiple decisions in a day. Keep it down to a smaller number that's very focused on your end objective. Don't get distracted by shiny things.
Well, I think that, and to kind of cap this off, I think the point there is if you're going to pick a business, pick something you're really lit up for, and that it's big
Yeah.
enough where you can grow it. But what you said something really smart there, Don, is that you can be creative on how you're delivering on that big mission that you're really excited
Mm-hmm.
about, and so
Mm-hmm.
you can get that visionary, and that's where it's interesting. I've seen companies that have done really well, and then what happens is it starts to grow and scale, and then the CEO, who's more of a visionary, they start to build a team, and then what happens is sometimes the team almost takes over where it gets more into treadmill, and if the business isn't going where they're taking the ideas of the the visionary, it's very easy for that visionary to start getting say, I'm not interested in this anymore, and the business goes into this treadmill. But you need somebody there that as you grow and scale to keep that visionary, to keep coming up with ideas along the way, to keep it vibrant and alive. Otherwise it goes and it starts to decline. um, so I think there's like that happy kind of median there where I think you're right. You need to focus, but doing having the creativity within the business to keep you engaged along the way is really powerful.
Well, a lot of business owners are the CEO by default. Like a lot of entrepreneurs that are visionaries are CEOs by default. I include myself in that. My next big hire is going to be somebody in that executive role because I'm only here because it's of necessity because I am a visionary, and if I get caught up in that the day to day, flywheel stuff that's happening, I can lose my passion and my focus on bigger picture thinking and more, forward visionary thinking. So it's important if you know who you are in a business that you stay in that lane. And as soon as you have somebody that can, like every business needs a believer or an integrator, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the integrator. I know that. I've known that from the beginning. But it's finding that right fit of a person, like Jim Treliving from Boston Pizza found his integrator, the accountant that he works with, and they blew it up. It comes down to finding that other part of the equation, and that's where I find myself. I mean, I brought it as far as I brought it, which I feel grateful that we're where we are, and I'm just I like I said, I equate that to my team and the people that are around me, and of course, the idea and my vision. But I feel like if you have that integrator, that person that can let you go off into dreamland and bring those new visions and ideas and products or whatever. I mean, I went through this exercise during COVID. It was a really bad time for people in the head lice
Yeah.
business. As you can
Of course.
imagine, they were shutting everyone down. Then nobody was getting together. So nobody was really getting lice. It was a very challenging and precarious time for me and my staff and my franchisees and their staff. Thank God we made it through. But I had to become creative during that time again. And I needed that time to be creative. And I needed my team to support me in that. So that's when I birthed the second kind of addition to what we do, which is Superhero Kids Hair with Care, which is a hair salon for families and children living with autism or special needs to go and be able to get a haircut in a private setting. I recognized that there was nothing in the market like that. It was very niche, almost like the head lice business. And I had a lot of our own customers in the lice space coming in with autistic children who were having, a hard time with sensory issues. And we had to learn to adapt to that and cater to that. So created a program that trained people in autistic caregiver training. We focused on making that part of our service offering. So then we became All Things Kids Hair Care. Now we do lice removal in one salon, haircuts in another salon, not just for autistic kids or kids with special needs, but any child. First haircuts, families that just want a private space for them and their child without any other distractions. And it's worked out really well. And then with that, I was able to bring on a new product line, which was just a hair care line designed for kids that was tear free, scent free, dye free, paraben free. So, catering to that the sensitive types of individuals that can't use perfume products and things like that. So it allowed me to be creative in a time where I was kind of feeling stifled and unable to really do anything with my lice business. And yeah, so you have to have that creative outlet and be able to not, I don't like the word pivot, adjust when times get hard.
Yeah, and find a need. And so I'm
Yes.
curious, what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs out there that, I mean, you found a need during COVID. And so, for entrepreneurs that are like, what am I going to do next? What's the kind of next thing? Or maybe I need to pivot today. What helped you find that pivot option for you? I mean, that was during COVID, which would have been, really tough. Are there any kind of tips that you would give for the listeners to be able to find the need for, a pivot in a business?
Well, I mean, I just say look around you at your friends and family and what they're going through, what they're struggling with. Look at what your own challenges and struggles are. I just find it, I think what's meant to be comes to people. And if it's in your purpose and if it's in your life plan and it's what you're meant to be doing in this life, then it'll come to you. How that comes to you, whatever, want to say about that, but I believe it's a calling. And then when you're in your calling and in your purpose, then things naturally just tend to flow. I don't like to go against the grain, swim up the stream. I'm like, let me just go with the flow. I want to be in the kayak going down the stream with the water. I don't want to try and, swim upstream. I like going with the flow. So I think if it's meant to be, it's naturally going to flow into your life.
Yeah, that I love that advice. That is so good and has been my experience as well. It's like, in all businesses you go through, there's hard points, but overall, it's like having momentum coming if you're going to get into a new business of some sort. It's like if there's a need there when you launch it, you should start to see like an easier flow where it's not like you got to hit your head against the wall for every single client that comes in. Once you start getting that going, it should start to come a lot easier where you're not pushing the ball because I mean bottom line is if you do a really good job and your clients are happy, you should start to
Hmm.
see some momentum and you should start to get, we'll say, properly rewarded for that as well. I mean, some business, and I'll share an example. We were thinking a number of years ago of launching another business, and actually, property management was another business that we were looking to launch. And so what was interesting was we had the signs and we basically built the infrastructure to launch it, and it was
Hmm.
going to be a subsidiary of Fair's team because we have a lot of clients that look to rent, but the model, the financial model, it only worked at certain. You needed to hit a certain threshold of units where before it became profitable, and that's where another vehicle we started seeing a need for investing. Pricing doubled, interest rates doubled pretty much, and it was harder to find good deals. But that's where we looked into and started the real estate investment firm where we were buying these large multifamily, and then both of them we were looking at both businesses and we're like, there's a huge demand need that nobody is helping Canadians invest in these multifamily deals down in these high growth markets like Atlanta and Tampa and Charleston. And we so then we launched it and it was like Fair's Capital. There was like instant demand and there was just more need and there was more upside, whereas property
Hmm.
management, that would have been like a grind, and thankfully at the beginning we put a stop on that.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's where making sure that you can get properly compensated, and then you should start as you dive in that, okay, I found a honey hole there. And I
Yes.
love what you said about purpose as well, like making sure that there's a calling
Hmm.
as well. And I'm a believer in that as well. It's like if you seek, you shall find, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Ask and it will be given. I mean, honestly, if you are doing what you're meant to be doing and it's the purpose you have in your life, you might try this or that, but what you're really meant to be doing is going to be what's ultimately successful for you. And you can use that vehicle in so many ways to help other people and give back. I mean, the greatest thing I love about what I do is I get to help other Canadians live the dream of business ownership through franchising. I I've helped other people start a business. I mean, there's nothing more rewarding than that. From somebody who didn't, have anything growing up to being able to give other people an opportunity to make a living. It's amazing, and it's a blessing in my life, and it's meant to be shared. So that's why franchising is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. No, you have a system, it works. It's already been proven. So that makes it, then it becomes the right people. So let me ask you this. What do you think attracts, you can take this either way you want. So maybe there's a new franchise owner that you want to be able to attract where that's the business, or maybe it's a client. So like how do you go about attracting, we'll say, business development? What advice would you have? Because that, I would say, for entrepreneurs, one of the biggest reasons why they fail is, right, they don't have new business coming in the door.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your personality, you have a great personality. So let's say
Thank
you
you.
have like we'll say the personal, we'll say the skill sets there to build relationships.
Hmm.
What do you think or tips would you give uh, others to be able to generate more business, to get more potential revenue in the door.
Well, you really need to put people first and make it all about people. So providing an excellent customer experience, being really involved in your community, being of service to other people, and just filling needs in other people's lives just by just osmosis, being involved and being somebody who gives back to their community or to their staff or to their franchisees. That just it's got a ripple effect to it. And I mean, you can do all the marketing in the world and you can do all the outreach and Google AdWords, and people will find you. But are they going to really resonate with your core values and your culture? And are they really going to resonate with the authenticity of what you are offering as a solution or as a value to them or the community or what have you. So I think it just comes down to putting yourself out there in the most authentic way and providing a very good, valuable service and experience for people that come in contact. It's not what you can say in an ad or say any other way. It's how you're making a person feel. For us, it's
Mhm.
so easy when they come in to get lice removal, they're in a really dark place, and we are doing something so intimate with them. That's like the next most intimate thing next to the primates picking bugs off each other, the monkeys, right? And we're doing something that gives us an opportunity to really connect on an empathetic level and an emotional level. And when you touch people that way, there's an open door to have conversations about whatever you want to have conversations about. Whether you want to convert that person into a word of mouth person, or maybe you want to buy a franchise, or maybe you want to come work with me, or maybe your charity needs something, or whatever it might be. It's opening those doors with just authentic caring and service to others is the best way that I know. Because you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and give a crappy service and nobody cares because you're not really doing it for the right reasons. Maybe you're just trying to make a buck off someone, and people can sense that a mile
They
away.
can feel that. That's so
Yeah.
good. And that what you said there is just such a we'll say a more advanced mindset when it comes to customer service. And when you said how they feel, how does a customer feel when they walk out? And one of the things that I've seen with like in the past, I've had conversations with my son, and I'd say, "Hey, this is like that wasn't cool. You said this or you said it a certain way to your mom." And he's like, "Well, that's not that's I didn't mean for that to." And it's like, well, that's how it was received. That's how it came across when you said it that way. And the bottom line with the message in that lesson with my son is that it doesn't matter what you intended. It's how it's
Mhm.
being received. And
Correct.
so the customer service, when you're building it out, it's like when we're communicating this message, it might sound okay coming, but how is it actually being received from the other side? And is it being
How's it
received the right way?
feeling? Yeah,
The
it's like,
feeling.
how's it feeling? That's exactly it. It's how's it I could tell you, "God, Mark, you're such a nice guy." And you could hear those words, but do you feel the words? Like, it's how you make people feel, not what you say to them, right? And it comes across every time. And in this field I'm in, we're here to talk people off a ledge. And you too, I mean, being in real estate, people are in a heightened state of overwhelmed. They're moving, they're waiting for a close, they're in transition, and they're like, maybe they're downsizing, they've lost somebody and they're looking to move on. And so you're dealing with a lot of people that need that feeling, that
Mm,
empathy, that connection, right? And once you've established that with somebody, they're going to be a friend for life. They're going to be, somebody who tells other people what a great experience they had with your company or with your service. So that's what we aim to do.
yeah. It's
I don't need franchisees out there not making my customers feel good, right?
yeah.
I don't need staff who lets people walk out the door feeling not, you know, taken care of. So that's
Love
my
that.
best advice. Make that your number one thing. Like, have your core values, your culture, your vision. Like, what is it that you want people to feel when they interact with your business?
That's powerful. And that you wrote that down and made it clear. On that piece of
Oh, it's
paper, you
called
simplified it.
it's a one-page document with our mission, our vision, our, core values, our value proposition. Like it's got, all of the things that we are condensed into a one-page document that has to absolutely resonate.
That right there is, I would say, for any growing, scaling company, that is one of the biggest things for making decisions. And I'll for your team members, and I'll share quickly. Like when you have multiple different touch points when somebody calls in and they're making their decisions based on the same core values. So like, for Fair's team, actually, here are core values there. I'm gonna do a share. So we got like uh
Oh, I
for you
love it.
if you're listening, so we got love,
Yeah,
on fire, excellence, growth, innovation, and wow. So I'm in that
love
boat. I'm all, you sold me
yeah,
when
yeah,
it come to core values. But what's really cool is as you start hiring and and you hire them based on them already aligning with the values, all of a sudden you get a consistent type of person. And what I mean type of person, there's like a genuine, so love, for example, they got to have a genuine love. It's either you have it or you don't have it. But when they make decisions, they're like, is this for a customer, is this a loving thing to do? Am I passionately engaged in what am I doing? And did I stamp it with excellence? And but
hmm
not many companies simplify it to a one page the way that
yeah,
you did and write it down.
yeah.
What
It's
advice would you have
foundational.
for the listeners to do that?
Well, it's foundational. It should be part of your business plan. I mean, sometimes you got to figure these things out as you go, but if you don't have a solid foundation off which to build, then you're going to be constantly structuring yourself to stand tall or to continue to grow. So it's probably one of the foundational exercises that an entrepreneur should do before they even launch a business, because you have to know who you are and where you stand and what your foundational values are. Um, because then other people can resonate or understand exactly who you are, what you're doing, and where you're wanting to go with what you're offering. So it's something I learned through just being around other business people and franchisors. The value of that document being foundational to who you are as a company, and
Don, Don, I would imagine when you put that piece of paper in front of some people, they light up a little different than others. Do you look for like do they have this gleam in their eyes like, oh, I love what's on this, where some people they don't resonate with that?
Yeah, and it's a higher and it's a higher fire document too. Like you can go into a I don't like performance reviews. I just like to make corrections as there's issues. I don't believe we're here to perform for anybody, but I mean that's just a corporate structure. I do things a little differently. So, did you think that what happened this week resonated with this, or on the,
Right.
we use it as a not a correction tool, but as a conversation tool.
Love
And
that.
it's a higher fire document. It's like if you're doing these things, you're going to stick around for a long time. And if you're not, I don't think things are looking good for you.
It's so powerful. It's a real thing, and that's what creates a really strong culture. Doing that, when you hear culture, right? What you just explained there, it basically encompasses this idea of culture in a business, and you just gave it like actual tangible things that you can do to create that. Uh, Now, one of the things, Don, that you do exceptionally well, like it's incredible what you've been, you're on national media, CTV, CBC, Global News, Discovery Channel, Rogers TV, the Maryland Dennis Show, the Morn Show, like you're just on so many different platforms on a national stage. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs to be able to elevate your status to that level? Like, how are you able to get on to all these shows? Is it just a matter of you've done an exceptional job building your franchise business out, and which you've obviously done? But is there any, say, counsel or advice to be able to elevate to that level, which not many business owners have got to where you are?
Well, I could say it's my exceptional marketing maven skills, but no, it isn't. It's the fact that we're doing something very niche, and it's a common human condition that's cyclical and that is newsworthy. One thing I do coach sometimes, other women and people that want to get into franchising, I have to say you have to, not as part of the exercise of creating your painted picture, you have to have a really good story, and you have to have something of value to offer the media. And of course, being in this business, I already had that great story. This is a common human condition. So that gave me a bit of a leg up, the ability to go out and say, hey, I've got this valuable information for your viewers or your readers or what have you, and position myself as an expert in the field, and then just took it from there. And then, becomes like every year kids get lice back to school, so they're looking to fill the content. So it's all just a question of creating a story and offering something to talk about, because that's what media looks for. They're looking for stories to share. They're looking to fill content with common human stories. It's not all bad news out there. We don't need to have a 24-hour news channel of bad news. We can talk about nice fun things, and head lice is just one of those topics. I just was lucky to be on a couple of good shows that got me some good cred, and some expertise in the field. And now it's just been able to, I've been able to capitalize on that, which I feel really grateful for. Because hey, that's free press. That's, you can't pay for that. And but I don't look at it. Also, I don't go after it for that reason either, too. Because in the beginning, I was really trying to educate people. Part of our mission is to, end the stigma associated with head lice, and to stop the overuse and abuse of pesticides on children and people on the planet. So I had a mission, and I really wanted to educate people that, you don't got to go to the drugstore and buy some harsh chemical or pesticide. You can try this or this. So I did have a heart of educating people at the beginning too, and then it just, it went from there. So yeah, I was lucky in that way.
Yeah. Well, and you really hammered on something here, or you mentioned something. I'm going to hammer on it. Is the story. The story. I think this is something that, and I'll share a quick story about why having a story is so important. I was at this Italian place, and the server comes over, and I saw on the menu that there was Nona, or the story about coming over. I'm like, tell me about it. He's like, oh, and he started saying about the origin of the restaurant, that this is a third generation restaurant. Nona or whatever came over from Italy, and she had her secret sauce, and he was telling me all about it. I'm like, engage, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden the menu came alive, because
yeah,
I got to try grandma's secret recipe, and they came from Italy. And I was
yeah.
thinking to myself, I'm like, what a differentiating factor, because people think Italians all the same, but the story, obviously the food and the service creates it, but the story is what
Mhm.
actually got me really engaged
Right.
with this particular restaurant. And I think that, for you and how you shared your story, it's like there was early struggle. And here's the struggle that I went through personally. And here's what we've done to solve that. I think that story resonates with people, that they can, because generally business is like, oh, okay, business is one thing, but people resonate with stories. So I think that every business out there, if you don't have a solid story as to what it is that you do, like, and ideally it could be an origin story. I think if you can create that, I think you're going to sell more, because people will resonate with that at that deeper level in business. What are your thoughts with that?
You have to have a reason. You have to have a reason for what you do. Why you do what you do. Like, what's your reason? If it's not an authentic reason that's born out of a need you might have had, or a need that you see someone else has that you want to help them with, again, it comes down to being of service and living your purpose and being of value, and using your hands and feet to do the good work that you were called here to do. And when you're doing that, it's like I said, it's flowing downstream, and it's kind of effortless, and it just comes naturally. And the story is it's not, it is an authentic story. If you're trying to craft a story and make a story up to do something you think you want to do, which maybe isn't what you're meant to do, it's not going to translate or resonate, right? um, Anyone can write a story, anyone can make up a, right, a
Yeah.
story, but it's really foundational, like that that painted picture. It's part of
Yeah.
your story. It's part of your history. It's who
I
you are.
love that. And so that's where you just need to like slow down and think about it and then write it out and
Yeah.
simplify it so that you can say it like in an elevator almost. I think that is
The
that's a
Dragon's
powerful
Den
step.
pitch, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
That's right.
the 30-second Dragon's Den pitch.
Yeah. No, exactly. So it's very clear to me why you've been so successful. I mean, the stuff you're talking about here is like the gurus they talk about, but you've actually implemented it. Um, Transitioning the conversation a little bit. So once entrepreneurs they start to be successful, uh, and they're generating extra funds, what investing advice would you give entrepreneurs out there? I mean, there's so many different places they can invest their money. What advice would you have for entrepreneurs that are listening?
I've always been of the mindset that you reinvest back into yourself. You reinvest back into your business. You invest. There's a lot of investments to be had, but I feel I'm my greatest investment, and what I'm doing is a great investment. So if I have $5 to invest, I'm going to invest it back into my business to continue to grow it. Um, I haven't really thought of any, like, I mean, real estate's always good. There's always a number of opportunities to invest, but I'm a big believer in investing in yourself and investing in what's working.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, you if you improve a skill set and that's something that can keep paying you dividends for your rest of your life, right? I think
Right.
that's great. And then the business side of it as well. It's like if you put a dollar in and you can get a sure way to get $4 back or $5 back.
I forgot one thing, and invest in people. Invest in people.
And
Yeah.
what do you how would you do that if you were to invest in people?
So,
What are some examples?
uh, for me, finding someone who's extremely good at business development, or somebody that's extremely good at marketing, or somebody that can bring more value to the table than I'm paying them to do, right? So if I'm going to invest in $70,000 a year in somebody to come onto my team, they're going to be making 200,000 for me a year or more. Like I'm investing in you, and your investment needs to pay off, right? So that's kind of what I mean when I'm saying reinvest in the business and invest in people, because ultimately, if you don't have a good sales force, you're not going to make great sales.
So good.
I'm only good at so many things. I can't really.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and that to me is a consistent theme I've seen with entrepreneurs having, hundreds and probably thousands of conversations through the years now is like the best entrepreneurs, there's a humility there. There's curiosity, which you said earlier. I'm always curious and like that's like check, check, check. But the humility to know that you don't know everything as well and to say, hey, listen, I'm going to hire somebody that's better than me at that. The
Mhm.
best
Mhm.
entrepreneurs can be able to take a step back and say, hey, listen, I'm going to hire somebody that's better and
Yeah.
I'm going to keep, doing the things over here. It's hard for some people.
Yeah.
That pride can stand in the way. It's like nobody, I do it better than everyone else. I'm not going to hire anyone because I do it best. And that's what for me really helped when I was like, no, nobody can do it as best. As like slow down and like, is that a narcissistic view to think that only I in the whole world can do it? And it's like, well, that's actually pretty self absorbed to think that and so there's it's interesting how humility comes into entrepreneurship to be able to grow.
Well, if you don't have that, you're not going to have a lot of people who want to stay around you for a long period of time. I mean, if you're Mrs. Know It All, and you can do it better than anyone else, and you're really cocky, and people don't want to be around that. They want someone who's fallible and human and who needs help. People
Yeah,
like to help people, right? And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
the more I ask for help, the more successful I become. I feel like it's almost,
yeah,
it's like, not doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
100%. This has been great, Don. And again, the conversation we could keep going here, and I feel like we scratched the surface. But I got three last questions, rapid fire, and then we're
Okay,
gonna wrap it up. You ready?
great. All right.
All right. So first question
Okay.
is, which book has made the biggest impact in your career?
I can't. It's like picking a favorite song. I mean, there's a lot of books out there, good to great, how to win friends and influence people. There's like traction. There's like so many books. Um, the Bible's a great book, keeps you humble. So I'm not going to give you an answer to that. I'll just say there's too many books to pick from.
Well, all those books you said, everyone is a big, massive check. You got to check it out. So, very good. It's interesting how when you start to grow and scale, there's certain books that come to the top, and the ones you said there were all great, great advice. Uh, Second question is, the people that know you best, Don, what are the three words that they would describe you as?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask them. I don't know.
What about
I
you?
can't.
What would you say would be three traits about you that we'll say, has helped you be successful? If you were to say,
Well, I mean, I don't know what anyone else would say about me, but like I know myself. I know that I'm very curious. I'm extremely curious. I'm creative, and I think I'm brave because like I've done some things which most people might not do. So yeah, I would say creative, curious, and brave.
very good, excellent. Thanks for that. And final question for you, Don, today is, what advice would you have for the entrepreneurs? What final advice would you have for them before we wrap up here today?
Well, I did write a couple things down when I look at my cheat sheets. I would say don't take yourself too seriously because there's no good in that. You have everything in you that you need to succeed, and you always have, and you always will. And no one's perfect, so don't be afraid to mess it up. And fear is useless. What is needed is trust, and you have to always trust that you're where you're supposed to be when you're there, and just keep going forward.
The beautiful encouragement there. Such great final pieces of advice there, and all 100% true. Don, what's
Um,
the best way that the listeners, if they want to reach out or they're curious, or maybe they run into that issue in the future, what's the
mhm.
best way that they can reach out and connect?
They can visit licesquad.com, call 888 Lice Squad, superhero kids hair care.ca. We're just a phone call or a click away.
Amazing. Don, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time, and congratulations on all your success.
I appreciate the time we've had. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for having me on your show. Good luck with everything. Really nice to meet you.
You too, Don. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. If you like the show, please share and subscribe to the channel where we're building a community of up and coming entrepreneurs. And remember, the fastest way to build wealth is to grow your business and invest into real estate.